Okay. Did you start the audio as well? Cool. All right, we are here in the iVue Robotics workshop with a DevelopAir Mini that I just broke in transportation out to heading out to the drone park. So we're going to do a repair and just give you a very real look at what it takes to swap out a broken DevelopAir like this. So this was fairly careless. This has happened with some of our DevelopAir models in transport before. We do sell wheeled cases or weatherproof cases, kind of like Pelican style cases. We actually go with a brand called Condition 1. That actually comes standard with DevelopAir Mini. I am just a big brain genius, decided to not use it when we were transporting DevelopAir Mini. So now you're gonna see what it's like again to do the repair. I did kind of cheat, get a head start. I took off the 2 screws for the boom arm that broke. But we still have the other 3 boom arms to go ahead and take off. So we're going to get started with that. And we're not actually going to start taking off the boom arms just yet. We're just going to take off the screws. Take out the screws. I know English. All right. You're not going to get the best play-by-play commentary, but you might get some here and there. But again, just a very real look at what it takes to take apart one of these DevelopAir Mini and rebuild it in a new fuselage. Now I did cheat. This is, again, mostly processed already where all the support material is removed, other than there's a little bit of support material here in this little lip where the top cover slides in. All right, just this last boom arm. Kind of interested to see how quickly this is going to go, if it's going to be plus or minus half an hour. Let's find out. All right, now let's open up the top cover and we're going to unplug all the motor wires. So there's 3 motor wires per boom arm. And in these DevelopAir Mini and really all of our DevelopAirs now moving forward, they're color coded. So we do have some mismatch where we have red, black, and blue wires and then red, black, and yellow wires. So red still goes to red, black still goes to black. But in the case you have a mismatch set, it's going to be blue to yellow instead of yellow to yellow or blue to blue. All right, sound effects are necessary, and the boom arm comes out just like that. So we'll get the other 4 boom arms off first, and then we'll go ahead and take off that broken 3D printed piece that's stuck inside. And I'm just going to hopefully keep the boom arms in place in the proper position where they'll go back on in this fuselage. And you may not think it really makes a difference, and you're kind of right, but we do have the motor mounts color coded, so the red motor mounts are on the front. It's a tight fit in this boom arm hole. Gosh, keep it appropriate, Jacob. There's a white wire that's kind of in the way, but we just moved it. Blood, sweat, and tears going into this, ladies and gentlemen. Now, don't be alarmed. That's not going to be typical, but I already had like some sort of like callus or blister or something. Not blister or callus, but like a hangnail. So let me treat that. This might be cut out, might not be. First aid. Jacob has AIDS. I should probably wash my hands too. I need my mommy here to kiss my boo-boo and make it feel all better, right? Kidding, not kidding. Kidding. Not kidding. Alright, I think this will do. What a... Using a Band-Aid, right? What are you, 12? Trying not to get my, kidding, AIDS blood all over this Developer Mini. Alright. Now that we're back, if we did cut that out, we'll see. We can continue our work and hopefully not open up any of our other fingers where there's those hangnails that I get so many of. I think working a lot with 3D printed plastics, but woe is me. One of these days I'll develop real man hands. Alright, just down to the last boom arm here, moving the light wires out of the way to get to these last set of motor wires. Sound effects necessary. As I proceed not to make my usual sound effect. I'm learning restraint, ladies and gentlemen. You're witnessing it real time. Alright, so now we have all the boom arms off. Let's go ahead and just set this Developer to the side, Developer Mini to the side. And like I mentioned before, we're going to take this 3D printed piece out. Now, I didn't have all the tools in position ahead of time. I'm going to look for a set of little pliers that we have, and then I might need another tool to kind of rotate this piece out of place. But I say that I was just able to rotate it without using any tool other than my hands, and I might be able to also pull it out as well. And you know, I have a pair of tweezers right here. So you'll see when I pull this piece out, you'll see a little hole or tab that you can stick a pair of tweezers or even like a screwdriver. Sometimes again we'll use a small pair of pliers. We also have a tool that we use for 3D print processing that kind of looks like a dental scalpel. But let's see, this isn't working too well with the tweezers. I think it's because I'm not doing the sound effect. No. Let me try getting a proper tool. That's not myself, and I'll put this first aid kit away as well. Hopefully not going to need it. This is the dental scalpel tool I was talking about, or type tool. Wrong boom arm. Okay, so I probably could have pulled it out with the tweezers. I just rotated it a little bit more in the wrong direction, but now it should come out pretty easily with this dental tool. All right, and just like that. So basically from the inside of the part, you can stick a tool to then just kind of pull this piece out where there's a little nub inside of the boom arm, or I don't know if you could see it. Let's see, might be out of focus, but it is kind of what it is. Oh my God, we have autofocus on. Look at that. So you can see that nub right there. So you basically just have to get that nub where it aligns with that slot right there. So by default, the nub is going to be right there locked into place. So you need to rotate it and then you can pull it out with the tool. You might be better and able to just use your hands to pull it out depending on how it breaks, but in our case, we typically have to use a tool. That's not myself. All right. So I mixed up the motors, go figure, but there we go. Luckily with the Developer Mini motors, they're marked with either a divot or no divot, so you can make sure that they're lined up properly. All right, so now we can go back to the Developer Mini with all the electronics in it. And the next step is we're going to pull out the flight controller, which is a Pixhawk 6C Mini. And between this video and the documentation that we already have available, you should be able to build your own Developer Mini if you're even in the slightest technically capable. And the bill of material cost for one of these Developer Mini is about $400 if you include the battery, maybe even a little bit more than that. I think it's $350 without the battery. All right. So I have the flight controller now pulled out, and it's connected to pretty much every other electronic already in this Developer Mini. It may make sense to go ahead and just separate it bit by bit to remove all of the electronics individually, but I think for the purposes of this rebuild and this video, we're going to take out all the electronics together and try reinstalling them while they're all still connected, and we'll see how well that works out. Right now I'm taking out the LED adapter board. This is the board where all the position lights, one on each bottom side underneath of the motor mounts or the boom arm mounts. And that will allow you to see, especially at night, which orientation the Developer Mini is in. And then there's two battery status lights, which we have here and then on the opposite side over here. And those turn from green to yellow to red based off of the battery status level. And actually green to yellow to red to flashing red. Fancy. All right, so all the lights you can just kind of push through, and the LED adapter board then comes out just like that. Then we have the 4-in-1 ESC, the power monitor board, and then the XT30 connector, which needs to come out of the fuselage. Now, I am already not looking forward to reinstalling this XT30 connector. This has proven to be a challenge on a few of the Developer Mini builds. Not always, but you may see, or of course, as luck may have it, it's not a problem in this video and I just sound like a whiny asshole, which, not wrong, but pardon my French. It can always be better, and I'm always so demanding. And I always have to do a Trump impression for some reason. Because he's a Trump D-right. And lastly, the USB cable is going to stay in for the time being, I guess, without all the other electronics. So kind of lied in that regard. Yeah, I think it's actually glued into place, so we're going to have to take an X-Acto blade probably to get that out, which not too bad. Just trying to see where we're at on time. We didn't set this up in the way that we typically did, so I might have to get up here in a little bit and restart the camera roll. All right. Now, before all of the electronics can go back in, there's spots for hex nuts that we need to pop into place. So I'm going to first uninstall the landing gear and the battery bracket from this Developer Mini, as those are where the hex nuts are placed, those 4 hex nuts. So let's go ahead and take the screwdriver. Definitely didn't temporarily just misplace there right in front of me. And get these unscrewed. And then similarly with getting these hex nuts out, I just like to use like the dental tool typically, and from the outside in, from the back side. And you just push the hex nuts out. And so I guess kind of showing you there what this looks like. And I think I got that one and got that one as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6. Please, no, Jacob, not with the singing. Your talking is bad enough. Looking at you, let alone talking or singing. Can you get someone else to do this? Not on Christmas Day, it turns out. Well, and this was kind of self-imposed by not properly packing Developer Mini for transport. All right, like I said, it looks like this is glued into place. And I said epoxied, but it's actually CA glue because it's fast acting. So let me see if I can quickly locate an X-Acto blade, and I might not even have to do that if I can use this kind of putty spatula. Not really a putty spatula, but... All right, nope, I'm gonna need an X-Acto blade. You know, it's sad I don't go looking just straight in our toolbox where it belongs, but it was there, so could have saved a few more seconds had I just gone where it belongs in the first place, but when does that ever happen? Beyond Christmas. It's a Christmas miracle. And it looks like I didn't even really need it. I was just able to kind of wiggle the USB-C connector out of place. And now this is actually longer than what's ideal. So let me go see if we have one of the new shorter cables that we can use instead. Yep. So this is actually the standard USB-C cable. I forget how many centimeters it is. 5.5 or 5 or 7.5 centimeters. I don't know. We only use Freedom units around here. Figure that out, nerds. All right. I could pop that side plate out, this fuselage, pop that side plate out. And I think this one goes to El Garbaggio. All right, now that we got that USB-C connector out, I think we can go ahead and proceed with the hex nuts. We may not even need a tool to pop those in place. Sometimes you do need to use like one of these or the backside of tweezers to pop them in. So let's see if that's the case. Or if my boy hands can manage the job. You could also use like the back of a screwdriver as well. And you just want to make sure that the hex nuts actually sit down in there flush. Otherwise, you'll notice that you may have a problem when you go to screw in the landing gear in the payload bracket or the battery bracket. Technically a battery and a payload bracket. And on the Developer Mini, we call it a battery bracket, but on the larger Developer, we call it a payload bracket. All right, all this monstrosity goes back in there. Well, let's go ahead. From the telemetry 1 port, we're going to unplug the telemetry radio, the MLRS radio. If you've watched our recent videos, you'll have noticed that this Developer Mini was consistently rotating. And the way that we fixed that was actually connecting it to the Developer Mini via one of these Radio Master boxers with a MLRS module in it, and then we had to actually adjust the parameters via that screen there. We weren't able to do so via Mission Planner. The parameters would just revert. So well, it looked like the parameter stuck after I checked it via Q ground control after the fact. That I changed the parameter via the controller, but again, we're going out to flight test with one of our interns meeting us there when I, made the bad judgment call of not properly securing Developer Mini amongst the very heavy camera bag that decided to fall on it. Well, I don't know what it was thinking. Silly camera bag. And then the other cable I was going to unplug the GPS to before, I sidetracked myself. I would never do that. I'm focused 100% of the time, all the time. It's the same thing, you moron. I just hope this goes to show if we can build a drone company that obviously, we're not in parity with DJI building flying camera drones, although you can attach fairly nice gimbaled camera systems to these Developer. These being development platforms first and foremost. They are pretty accessible for you to mount just about any sort of payload or write your own software programs and be able to test them out and be able to do autonomous missions or, even just flying manually with a controller of pretty much any kind, from like a Radio Master Boxer to a game controller to like a HereLink smart controller that's more akin to DJI type experience, or even like we use the Legion Go with the iVue Robo Control app. The best app, the best drone control app. All right. So you want to make sure that the hex nuts don't fall out of this XT30 bracket, and we're going to try installing this XT30 panel board first because I think that's going to be the most frustrating part of this rebuild, but we'll see about that. And I think we're approaching 30 minutes, so I'm just going to go ahead and proactively restart the recording so don't get cut off in the middle of doing something important. All right, I got the clap. More STD jokes? Real funny, Jacob. Talk about myself in the third person because I'm not crazy. All right. Just trying to get all those other electronics out of the way as much as possible. And then I'm going to start with the bottom hole, as that one has been historically more problematic, and if I can get this screw threading in, theoretically shouldn't have a problem with the top screw going in. And I can't really tell just yet. It looks like I'm getting it in, but it's loose. Hardy har har, I crack myself up. When laughter is the best medicine, why not make yourself laugh, right? All right. I think we got it, ladies and gentlemen. Nice. Wow, look at that. That's actually not too shabby, but let's see if I'm talking too soon, if we can get this top screw in here as well. And then if we can get this top screw in, then we'll go back and finish up the bottom. Start from the bottom, and now we're here. Oh my God. Could this be any more seamless? I would like you to do this with a DJI drone. All right. Now, I was about to do something very idiotic. Not that I would ever do that, am I right? I was going to install the flight controller first, but we should actually get the lights in position and the LED adapter board. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'll try to hold this up in a way that you can see it. It being the fuselage, or it being the fuselage. Wow, Jacob, you're so low energy. All right. One down, two to go. All right, so connector 2, which you'll be able to see on the LED adapter board if and when you work with one. Connector 2, the light goes to the front right position, and then connector 1 goes to this front left position. Now you'll see that this 3-pin connector will get in the way if you don't already have the light pre-installed, so I think I will have to disconnect that 3-pin connector, put the light in place, and then somewhat painstakingly reinstall that 3-pin connector. It's kind of a tight angle. But Nothing I can't do. Oh my God, look at that. I am a developer mini building pro. You would hope so. What else can you do, Jacob? Some people might not even say I can really do this. Now, I can build these, but as far as like doing the R&D, that's not really my forte. That's too big brain for this little puny brain of mine. I'm a more big picture and down in the details. All of the connecting the dots. That's I can do some CAD, but better off not. Same with any sort of like software development or board design or anything like that. And now that's more of a stretch. I've done some very basic movement of like screw holes on boards, but anything else is really kind of beyond what makes sense for me to learn, or at least that's my story. I'm sticking with it. All right, we just about have all the lights in place. So connector 4 goes to the rear left, and then connector 3 goes to the rear right. Kind of glossed over that, but I'm still installing connector 3. Already installed connector 4. Or the light in connector 3 and 4. We're still having fun. No, not the singing again. There we go. Sound effects. Much better than singing. I apologize to all, like, maybe 3 of you, if that are actually interested in this build or rebuild process, and having to tolerate my, you know, so lovely, vibrant personality. You'll thank me later, whoever you are, and for what I don't know, but if you're into drones as much as I am and want them to be a part of our day-to-day lives to free us up to be more of creative, productive individuals, then maybe you can thank me for that. And now I'm just trying to figure out the best wire management. I might want to run, or I'm going to disconnect where the ESC is plugged in to the Pixhawk 6C flight controller, or Pixhawk 6C mini flight controller. So this cable from the LED adapter board to the FMU PWM out aux 1 port, which is really servo port 9 in Arducopter, and you can interface with it via QGround controller mission planner. But let's get that back into connector 2. Now we have this cable on the left side, or the right side if you will, the correct side. Maybe we'll do one of these live with a developer build, but I'll want to make sure I have all of the parts prepared ahead of time, more so than I did for this very impromptu rebuild. I figured this would just be good to share now that DJI is at least in a lot of headlines as their days seem limited as far as being able to introduce new products into the US without a lot of red tape to go through. So, as I am well aware, we are like a decade behind, not just as a country, but as a company to catch up with China. But I think actually if you were to see what we have in the works, and even though a lot of it is actively under development and some of it, you know, still on our roadmap, in the next 2 years, I think we'll be at parity with DJI as far as capability. Obviously, I don't think at scale as far as deployment, our drones in people's hands, and then in 3 to 5 years, again, not everything we can show or discuss now, but what we have in the works, I think will even allow us to leapfrog DJI and whatever they're putting out currently. So, and not just currently, but like currently 3 to 5 years from now. So, stay tuned. Humble beginnings, folks. Humble beginnings. Not so humble of a person, but humble beginnings. All right, so we really have all the electronics plugged in. Other than, let's go ahead, and this is a little out of the order I would typically do it, but this is actually probably better to do now than later once we have all the motor wires to work around as well. So I'm going to install this USB-C cable, and we might actually have to cut off some of this heat shrink to be able to seat it in properly. It really kind of just depends on the tolerance of the 3D print and then actually the heat shrink as well to some degree. So let's go ahead and try to get the cable positioned in the external hole, and then we can go ahead and plug in the connector to the side of the Pixhawk 6C Mini afterwards. And again, this is where it might have been even more helpful to go ahead and install this before putting the Pixhawk 6C Mini in place, but I think my will and perseverance or stubbornness will prevail, and we're going to seat it in even with the Pixhawk 6C Mini, technically speaking, in the way. We're somewhat getting there, but it looks like I might have to take off that layer of heat shrink I was talking about. Oh, let's see. Got to push and make the sound effects. All right, so we have it somewhat seated in there, but the real test is going to be if I can plug in a USB cable to it, and it's actually going to properly initialize and power on the Pixhawk. So I'm going to try to push it in a little bit more. Sorry, not sorry. So I think, as you can see, it takes a little bit more than half an hour, but I think we'll be well under an hour. Famous last words to go ahead and make this swap. But even over an hour is not really all that bad in the grand scheme of things. And even though don't really need to do this right now. While I'm thinking about it, going to remove this extra little bit of support material under the top cover lip on the back side. Just support material like that. Might not even be able to see it. Garbaggio. And just any extra little debris. Who's Brie? Debris. All right. This is also a little bit longer than the typical I2C cable that we use for the power monitor board. But that's all right. I'm going to try to wire it underneath this LED adapter board cable that plugs into the FMU PWM out aux 1 port, or again, servo port 9. All right. I think that's about as clean as we're going to get it over there. And let's see if we can get this wired a little bit better. And have the servo port go, servo cable. And again, unless I say otherwise, the servo cable I'm referring to is for the LED adapter board. All right. I know we don't have the best production quality on these videos, but it is what it is, folks. Wow, some standards you have, Jacob. And there you go, talking in the third person again. All right. I think we have everything in place to go ahead and test out this USB-C connection. So just plugging in the 90-degree cable that we have now. And I'm actually going to route it this way because otherwise I would cover up the GPS cable. So we're going to hope with these cables, sometimes it seems like it's not bidirectional like true USB is supposed to be, or USB-C. There's another hangnail that's probably gonna, or whatever those are, that it's probably gonna lead to more bleeding. Woe is me. I was looking for a USB-C cable right behind me, but it's over here. Another computer. All right, I'm going to cheat holding this connector in place from the inside just to see if it does get a solid contact. Otherwise, I'm going to have to take off that heat shrink. That's close. I think I might be able to push the connector in just a hair more with the current heat shrink on it, and then we can glue it in place and not have to worry about taking it off. Yeah, I think that should be good. Now let's actually test that. Ah! Wow, it's so lazy. Don't even get up out of your chair, fatty. Yep. So let's go ahead and glue that in place. And so I could go ahead and just very carefully apply a little bit of glue, and yeah, I think that little hangnail or whatever is gonna start bleeding. All right, hopefully I can just work around it. But instead of taking the glue bottle straight to the heat shrink where it meets the plastic in there, it's gonna be probably too hard to see, but you'll just have to take my word for it that it's better to use like a toothpick or a wooden stir, like coffee stick, coffee stirrer like this. Just apply a very little bit of glue at the end. Again, this is CA glue, medium thickness. And then you just kind of go along. Really just one of the sides is necessary, but you know, if you can do both sides of the USB-C connector, Again, it's the heat shrink where it meets the plastic on the fuselage. A little goes a long way, but it acts pretty quickly, so you'll want to move fast before it dries on the stick, or and want to make sure that all the cables inside are pulled away from it, so those don't get stuck to either the fuselage or the heat shrink. But again, with it drying fast, you just have to hold those away or make sure they're moved away for, call it a minute, but it'll be dried enough to where it'll be harder to remove than it otherwise would be if it weren't glued, within like 5 seconds. All right. Well, now that we have the USB connector in place, I think we can just go ahead and install the motors again. And then we can install the top cover, install the landing gear payload bracket, and then we should be ready to go back out and fly it, as long as I don't break it in transport. So I was about to put the rear right motor on the front right. Glad I caught myself doing that. Not that you have to install these screws after each boom arm is installed, but I'm just doing it that way. Wow, you mean there's no set installation or production assembly process? Not quite. Wow, Santa's got his elves working in the workshop even on Christmas Day. What the hell? No days off. Can't fit two connectors through one hole at the same time. This is a one connector at a time type of hole. Our developer minis are not. And there goes our PG rating. Look at that, 3D prints done for a standard developer top cover for an order we just got in. Our first ever order through the iVue Robotics website from a customer we had no interaction with prior to them placing the order. How exciting is that, ladies and gentlemen? For a developer number 38, a developer HP. What great news. All right, go ahead and install the screws on this boom arm. And then once all the boom arms are in place, then we'll go ahead and connect the motor wires to the ESC. All right. We are making good progress, ladies and gentlemen. Can't quite tell how long this roll has been going, but after I get this boom arm, actually I'll get the last boom arm in place, and then before we go to install the motor wires, I'll restart the roll. Working like Santa's elves in the workshop. Woe is me, Jacob. Cry me a river, why don't you? I'm trying to be funny. Keyword trying. Just trying to route the motor cables in the direction I would like. Make it a little bit easier once we go to actually plug them in. Should probably be using our smaller set of pliers and not these tweezers, or we have ceramic tweezers, but this is what I have readily available. Got to be resourceful. Gotta get high on my own supply. That's not the only thing I get high on, hypothetically speaking. I get high on drones remotely, formerly via manned aviation. Well, still, I guess, when I'm a passenger. But and otherwise, I just get high on life. All right, look at that. This is starting to look like a brand new DevelopAir Mini. By the time any of you guys order a DevelopAir Mini, we might just have the one screw hole on the top and removing these from the bottom to match the new iteration of the larger DevelopAirs, which now has a hex nut that the top screws actually thread into as well. All right, not time for the top cover just yet. I'm going to restart this roll, and then we'll come back and get all the motor wires connected to the ESC. We can use my neck cracking for the sync point. All right, we're back. So we'll just start with the front left motor here. And like I said, this DevelopAir Mini has mismatch sets of wires. So yellow is going to blue in this case, otherwise black to black, red to red. And if you didn't take notice, it might be hard to see at this point in this DevelopAir Mini. Let me see if I see another 4-in-1 ESC harness readily available. I do. It's not the same 4-in-1 ESC. This was used in some of our early DevelopAir Mini prototypes, but same sort of idea. Yellow, red, and black, yellow, red, and black, yellow, red, and black, yellow, red, and black. One for each motor, and you can see they're in the same order. So just make sure you plug them in according to the color code. Otherwise, you'll notice that the motor will not spin in the right direction if you're using the document that we have for setup or configuration, or setup and configuration. All right. All right, what, Jacob? All right, I'm trying to get these ESC connectors in place now. I have the motor wires in my right hand. Right, and red to red, black to black. That motor is complete, and now let's tuck in those wires. Oh, did I mess this up? I did mess this up. So I actually had the yellow wire connected to the yellow wire from this motor connected to the blue wire for the ESC that connects to this back left motor. So be a little bit more diligent than I am. So blue is connected to black. I need to fix that. Blue needs to be connected to this yellow. All right, that is correct. And then red is connected to red already, and then black is down there underneath the red wire. Let's see if I can reposition it into a more ideal spot to plug in the motor side. I'm going to use some tweezers here and come in from the side plate, kind of push the wire up. I know, again, not ideal for you watching, but I'm doing my best to provide a play-by-play. That makes sense. All right. You think video games build up finger dexterity? Try drone building. It would beat those Chinese in no time. Whatever game they choose. Yellow, black and red to blue, black and red. So now I'm doing the front right motor and just getting all the ESC bullet connectors in place. Just popped out a position light, but that's okay. Now typically you might want to use like the CA glue to hold the lights in place, but again, if you're going to be doing a lot of development with it and not just using this as a basic flight platform, then you may not want to actually fix them in place just for your future self, not having to take a X-Acto knife or, you know, just use a lot of force to take them out. All right, so blue going to yellow, straightforward. Now red to red. And black to black. Nice. Nice, 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 nice. Blue to yellow. Black to black. Red to red. And I need to use the tweezers to grab the red motor wire. I don't need to, but going to. There I go again, taking the easy road. That's what I clearly do so often. Yes and no. All right. And the last Mohican. Motor wire. Now we got rid of all them filthy Mohicans. We took their land. We came, we saw, we conquered. Taking that battery status light out, popping it back in, and now we have free access to those ESC connectors. All right, red ESC connector to red motor wire. Yellow to blue. Actually, we're going to do black to black first, then yellow to blue. All right. Not quite a teardown video, but I mean, it kind of practically serves as one for the Developer Mini. Lastly, now we just have to plug in this top cover, well, the GPS and the radio that's installed into the top cover. So the radio plugs into the telemetry 1 port. Sometimes, especially if you don't have a lot of finger dexterity, you might need to use a tool through the front side plate to pop the connector in place. but no such tool is needed here. I am the only tool I need. Not true, as you've already seen. And now we're going to pop that top cover back on. Let's try to get that telemetry radio in a little bit better of a spot. There's more space. Wow, look at that. That's some clean wire management, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, as far as our developer minis go, that's actually not too shabby, but as you can probably tell, still plenty of room for improvement. And let me even give you a little bit closer of a look for anyone that does want to do a build of their own. We have made this open source. We don't have quite as much build material for developer mini out there as we do the larger developer, but especially the more and more interest there is, the more and more that we'll put out there. And of course, we're doing as much as we can. However, most of our team is part-time and working nights and weekends. So, yeah. Not that money solves all problems, but we could become a very real DJI competitor and overtake them again in 2 years' time for sure, with the right capital. But even at our current rate, I think people will be surprised to see what we're doing and what we're going to be able to do as far as taking DJI's market share. So stay tuned. Don't take my word for it. Just watch and wait, or join us and help us speed up this process. All right, we have like jack stands. They're actually in use, so this is going to be a little bit more awkward than what it ideally should be. And you know what? I'm going to use this iFixit case to prop up this developer mini. All right. Have those two screws there, and the other two are still in this landing gear. Now these are interchangeable. You can use either landing gear on either side. And then the battery needs to be oriented correctly. And I don't know what time it is. We might not get out to the field to actually flight test this today, but first thing in the morning, I think we'll go ahead and get to it. And we'll just call it good with this build video for today. Wow, Jacob, fucking settling. I can't overload you guys with too much content. Your brains will explode. And I should probably be a little bit more careful so I don't push the hex nut through and then make what seems like a relatively smooth process seem more troublesome than what it's worth. This iFixit case isn't really working out as well as I would have liked, but there we go. Uh-oh. I really hope I didn't push that hex nut through, because it felt like all of a sudden the screw was just in there and didn't like really thread in. There we go. No, okay, it definitely threaded in. All right, and we are almost done there, ladies and gentlemen. So, not quite, again, a from-scratch build, but this is as intensive as a rebuild as you'll really ever experience, so. Or your money back. Actually, I don't know if I can make a claim like that, so kidding, folks. But realistically, in our experience, this is about as bad as it gets as far as a rebuild goes. Da, 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 a Developer Mini, as good as new. All right, so there you have it, folks. I think that's it for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out with them. Otherwise, appreciate you watching. Again, Merry Christmas if you are indeed watching this on Christmas, and you'll catch us in the next video. Peace.